Good evening, everyone. You are joining the second portion of the Mount Diablo Unified School District Board of Education meeting. I'm reconvening open session. Today is March 19th. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I mixed up the order. I will now read the land acknowledgement, which is item 6.1. We recognize that the Mount Diablo Unified School District sits on the territory of the Confederated Villages of the Lasan, the ancestral and unceded land of the Bay, Miwok, and Northern Yokot, the successors of the sovereign Verona Band of Contra Costa County. As members of the Mount Diablo Unified School District community, it is vitally important that we not only recognize the history of the land on which we learn, but also we recognize that the land we inhabit and learn on is the ancestral land of these people who are alive and flourishing members of the Mount Diablo Unified School District and broader Bay Area community today. We'll move on to item 6.3, minutes from the last meeting.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve the minutes for the regular board meeting of March 12th, 2025.
Second.
So there's been a motion by Trustee Mason with a second by Trustee Nzewe to approve the minutes of March 12th, 2025. Please cast your ballot. And the motion is adopted on a 4-0-0 one vote. The one being Trustee McDougall is absent from today's meeting, both closed session and open session. Now we will move on to 6.4, approval of the agenda.
No changes, Madam President.
Thank you.
I move that we approve the agenda.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Trustee Nzewe with a second by Trustee Mason to adopt the agenda as presented. Further discussion? There is no further discussion. The item is adopted on a 4-0-0 vote with Trustee McDougall absent. For the report out of action taken in closed session, the first one is 7.1, negotiations. The board may discuss negotiations or provide directions to its representative regarding represented employees. The board received information. 7.2, discipline, dismissal, release, or reassignment of public employees under Government Code Section 54957B1. In closed session by a vote of 4-0 with no abstentions and Trustee McDougall absent, the board took action to approve the resignation of one employee per the separation agreement. And for a report out on language of administrative reassignments in closed session, the board considered the reassignment of two principals and one program specialist under Education Code Section 44951 and voted by a vote of 4 in favor and no abstentions, with Trustee McDougall being absent, to direct the district to send notice that they will be reassigned to a position for which they are credentialed at the end of this 24-25 school year. The next item will be presented by Trustee Count.
Item 7.3, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation. The board met in closed session with legal counsel to discuss a matter of existing litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9. Trustee Mayo recused herself. By a vote of 3-0 in the matter of Douglas Scott versus Mount Diablo Unified School District, Contra Costa County Superior Court case number C24-00500, the board approved a settlement up to the stipulated amount and according to the settlement terms.
And that concludes closed session. Public comment 8.0. The public may address the board regarding any item not on the agenda. Public comment will also be allowed on each specific agenda item prior to the board action thereon. The public may address the board regarding any item within the jurisdiction of the Board of Education that is not on this agenda. Speakers must submit a speaker's card to the board's secretary, and the board president will call on each speaker to the podium as appropriate. How many cards do I have? 7. So the presentations are limited to 3 minutes each, or a total of 30 minutes for all speaker, or the 3-minute time limit may be shortened, and we don't have to do that at this time. So the first speaker tonight is Brett Haupt.
Oh, good evening, board. It's good to see you guys again. Dr. Clark, good to see you. All right. I am honored tonight. We are honored tonight to bring you tales throughout the district. We have with us hundreds of notes and puzzle pieces from all of our educators from every site in Mount Diablo Unified. And we are here to give you a little presentation on what would help our teachers and our students the most in the classroom. So I will begin with an educator from Monty Gardens. Students thrive when counselors and nurses have manageable caseloads to provide individualized care. A nurse from Holbrook Language Academy. Please lower school nurse caseloads. I would then be able to spend more time at sites instead of 1 day per week and be able to follow up on all of the issues that come up, not just the absolute emergencies that rise up in the moment. We only have time to address the 5 alarm fires, but there are many 4 alarm fires that continue to rage on because we don't have the time. An educator at Olympic High School. Reject the cruelty of Mount Diablo's healthcare proposal, no rollbacks on full medical. An educator from El Monte Elementary. No combo classes. Students deserve full access to their teacher, not half of the time in a combo class. An educator from Shadelands Preschool, right behind us. Preschool special education classes should not exceed 6 students per session for a maximum of 12 students. Having the support of 2 SEAs per session is crucial, and we need more steps in place to ensure much needed coverage when SEAs are absent to ensure safety for our preschoolers. An educator from Mount Diablo High School. Please continue to pay full medical, and we desperately need smaller class sizes. My current situation is period 1, 37 students, period 3, 37 students, period 4, 37 students, period 5, 37 students, and period 6, 37 students. And finally, one more from Monty Gardens. IEPs should be held during work hours, or in a fair contract, educators should be paid for their time spent after work. Thank you all for listening, and have a happy Wacky Wednesday.
The next speaker is Jane Blausch-Enlow.
Hello, board. Hello, Dr. Clark. I have more lovely cards from people around our in our district, and I'll just start reading. I work many, many hours as a teacher, including nights, weekends, and summers. I put my blood, sweat, and tears into my job and my students. I would like a fair wage and medical so I can continue to do so. And I would like to feel like my district supports me. I teach 7th grade English and history with smaller class sizes, a fair wage, and compensation for after-site work time. I could do more experimental exercises, give in-depth feedback for writing, projects, and other assessments. I would also be able to better create a sense of belonging, foster more positive relationships, which we're all looking for, and give more one-on-one time. I am a teacher who deserves a fair wage and full medical benefits. My students deserve a highly qualified teacher in their classrooms. In order to meet the needs of my students, there should be smaller class sizes, more support staff like counselors, librarians, etc. To attract and retain high-quality educators, we must remain competitive in our pay and benefit offerings. Many neighboring districts are increasing compensations and incentives, making it essential that we evaluate how we can improve our own packages to remain an attractive option for top talent. Investing in our teachers is investing in our students' success. Thank you, and this goes to you, Mrs. Mason.
The next speaker is Melissa Ayala Beam.
Hi, my name is Melissa Ayala Beam. I'm an elementary school teacher in the district, and I've been teaching in MDUSD for over 10 years now. I'm going to read an assortment of cards that I've received from my fellow teachers. Dear MDUSD board members, we are asking that you work with us to come to a fair contract. Teachers deserve 100% medical benefits and a reasonable salary. Please end combo classes. It is not in the best interest of students. Students need smaller class sizes so they can get the support they deserve from teachers. Let's work together, not against each other. Dear MDUSD board, I urge you to prioritize smaller class sizes as they are crucial for student success. With fewer students per class, teachers can provide more individualized support, improve engagement, and better address diverse learning needs. Investing in smaller classes benefits both students and teachers, leading to stronger academic and social outcomes. Offer a competitive salary to attract, recruit, and retain highly qualified, equity-oriented educators who deserve to be able to afford to live in the same community where they teach. It's expensive in the Bay Area, and we all know it. Dear MDUSD board members, MDUSD students need the best. This starts with you. Please support us. We need smaller class sizes, no combo classes. Teachers need benefits, and so do their families. All of these things will lead to a high-quality education. We must invest in our schools to ensure a bright future. Our students deserve the best, and with the increased needs that students have, we should have lower class sizes, more counselors at each site, and nurses. In order to keep qualified teachers in MDUSD, let's do what's best for our students. Dear MDUSD board, I urge you to support 100% family medical benefits. This will help retain qualified, experienced teachers as well as attract new teachers. In addition, smaller class sizes are essential to student success, and please get rid of combo classes. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Austin Drace, or is it Dice? Thank you. I apologize.
Good evening, board. I'm a special ed teacher at Foothill Middle, and I'm here speaking on behalf of Walnut Creek Schools. Teacher workloads have increased slowly over the years. This is known as job creep, to the point that this workload feels unsustainable and it affects our physical and mental health. Please help us by reducing our class sizes. Free healthcare is huge. It brings better teachers to the district and is one of the factors that makes working here so fulfilling. Dear MDUSD School Board, our teachers should not have to work so many extra part-time jobs just to pay their bills. They just want to be awesome teachers. Reducing class sizes in MDUSD is absolutely crucial, especially in elementary schools. During these formative years, young students need more one-on-one attention from the teachers, which is not very feasible under our current student-to-teacher ratio. Research shows that smaller class sizes lead to higher academic achievement. From an SLP, 185 days is 1,295 hours. 1,250 of those hours are providing services. 200 hours for therapy notes, medical billing, and SACE data entry, 235 hours of assessment, 400 hours writing reports, 200 hours in meetings, 180 hours prep for sessions. The actual total is around 2,500 hours. This is from a teacher at Northgate. The science wing at Northgate is overrun with rats, and the classrooms do not have doors. For the safety of our students and teachers, please rectify this. We fear that a person could come onto campus and doors would help us feel more secure and keep our belongings safe. The rats can also carry diseases, and they are out of control because students lack adequate, appropriate spaces to eat lunch. Students should not be subjected to sitting next to rat traps at lunch either. Good day. Our students need smaller class sizes so that they can learn. Test scores would improve dramatically. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker is Megan Bromhall.
Good evening. I have the distinct pleasure of sharing what my colleagues in the Monument Corridor have to share, and I had over 80, so I'm going to summarize it so I don't have to read off of all of them. So I want to shout out YVE, Oak Grove Middle, and Cambridge for taking the time to write, and I hope you all take the time to read these. So I've received about 80. Over half of them have asked for smaller class sizes and no combo classes, especially at Title I schools. Give our students the tools for success, and please stop making them fight for an education. That's all these. These ones ask for student mental and physical health to be prioritized. Please lower caseloads for our nurses and counselors, and please employ full-time counselors at these sites so all students can receive services. These ones ask for more prep time so that we can prepare our lessons for our students and allow time for us to collaborate with our colleagues. This one asks for high school librarians. This one asks that you support your students in the music program, help them pay for repairs for their instruments so that they can create music. Please support our multilingual learners and give them the intervention they deserve. They deserve to be bilingual. They deserve to be biliterate. Please support our students and educators in the special ed department. Please give us the time and resources to meet with our families during conference weeks. Please give us 10 days. We need behavior support to ensure the safety of our students and to make sure students' needs are met. Please make sure they are in the correct placement to give them the best possible outcome. Please take a stand against the Trump administration as it destroys the Department of Education. Please prioritize multicultural staff. As our Pashto and Farsi speaking students grow in population, please have them be reflected in the classrooms. Stay competitive, retain high quality educators with full medical benefits for us and our families, increase our salary to meet the cost of living so we can stay and teach here. These ones ask for you to take care of us. Please take care of us so we can continue to show up every day for our students. We are burning out. Education and healthcare are the backbone of a healthy society. And lastly, I have an invitation from a science teacher at Oak Grove Middle School. Dear MDUSD trustees, I challenge you to come to teach at Oak Grove for 2 days. Day, teach a lesson for each period. Then on day 2, teach a lab. Then please decide what needs to be cut or added. Please experience what we go through daily. Thank you.
Next presenter is Danielle Ike.
Good evening. I am representing the Bay Point area, so a lot of these are from Bay Point teachers, including Riverview Middle School. We are all pieces of this puzzle. Here's how you can support our students. Smaller class sizes for K-5 at Title I schools. More attention and resources are required for teachers to support multiple learning abilities in one classroom. Less behaviors allow for more academic focus. From a TK and K teacher, special education help with special education students in our general ed classrooms. making testing students with special needs and serving them a priority so that they have timely access to the proper services and/or placements that they need, denying their needs or hurting them. This is from an upper grade teacher. Smaller class sizes in the lowest grades to establish strong phonic and pre-reading skills and abilities, please. I've been with the district as a special education teacher for over 10 years, and each year it's becoming more challenging to provide a safe learning environment for my students. I often have to plead my case or highlight unsafe conditions or breaches of contract for my students to get what they deserve. Unfortunately, we focus on reactive restoration instead of prevention, which is both unsafe and unethical. This year, a student was removed from my classroom to welcome a student in mid-year without the proper support, protocol, communication, and plan, which led to numerous injuries to both students and colleagues before receiving support. I am advocating for preventative measures, not reactive restoration, so that I can provide a safe, thriving learning environment for all my students. This is from Short Acres. Teaching at a dual language school with the partner model continues to bring challenges. We have double the students and half the amount of time to teach each group with limited resources and no Spanish intervention. Please reevaluate the program and support our students. Reducing class sizes, particularly in Title I schools, will help mitigate behavioral challenges and enhance opportunities for personalized support and targeted small group instruction. These are from Riverview. I have classes with an abundance of MLL students that I have no ability to communicate with outside of using Google Translate. I need support to help these students succeed. The district is going to lose people. We are burned out. Behaviors are crazy, and you're asking us to do more. Please reduce class sizes and promote teacher retention. This is from a science teacher. Science classes need smaller class sizes to have an effective learning environment and productive labs. Large class sizes cause safety issues, insufficient intervention opportunities, limited space for collaborative BTC activities, and overstimulating environments for students and teachers. Title I schools deserve to be fully staffed and credentialed. Students need smaller class sizes in English and math. 37 in a class hinders instruction. Thank you for listening.
And next is Mr. Dan Reynolds.
Good evening, Board. Dr. Clark. I have heard at different moments recently administrators in the district say that smaller class sizes don't matter, or that smaller class sizes don't have an impact on student outcomes. So I would like to share with the board the beginnings of a list of studies that show that small class sizes do matter and they do improve outcomes for students. A 2017 study authored by Michael Gilrain, Multiple Treatments from a Single Discontinuity and Application to Class Size, which says, I show that smaller class sizes significantly improve student test scores. A 2016 report from B.D. Baker, D. Ferry, and D.G. Sikaria, Mind the Gap, 20 years of progress and retrenchment in school funding and achievement gaps, which says, and I quote, ample research has indicated that children in smaller classes achieve better outcomes, both academic and otherwise, and that class size reduction can be an effective strategy for closing racially and socioeconomically based achievement gaps. A study from 2016 by William J. Mathis, Research-Based Options for Education Policymaking, the Effectiveness of Class Size Reduction, which says, it concludes, class size is an important determinant of student outcomes and one that can be directly determined by policy. This is especially crucial for populations which are most affected by large class sizes, such as low-income and minority students. The research brief outlines the benefits of smaller classes in terms of student achievement, graduation rates, and non-cognitive skills. Mathis recommends class sizes between 15 and 18. He says that while class size reduction can be costly, it could prove to be the most cost-effective policy in the long run. And because I have just 1 minute left, I'll skip over the next one, and I'll finish with this one. A 2014 study from David Zinger, Class Size and Academic Results, with a focus on children from culturally, linguistically, and economically disenfranchised communities, from 2014. In this research summary, the author examined class size reduction and its effect on student achievement by analyzing 112 peer-reviewed studies and showed that the overwhelming majority of these studies found that smaller classes have a significant impact on student achievement and narrowing the achievement gap. The author writes, noticeably, of the papers included in this review, only 3 authors supported the notion that smaller class sizes did not produce better outcomes. So I would encourage the board and the administrators throughout the district to stop repeating the lie that class sizes don't matter. They do.
Next is 9.0, communications and district organizations. Do we have a card? At regular board meetings, a single spokesperson of each recognized district organization may make a brief presentations. Mrs. Linda Ortega.
My regular spot. Thank you. Good evening, trustees, Dr. Clark, members of the audience, and Dr. Clark. We need to set up a coffee date. So I first of all want to start off, I do not have anything new to share regarding HVACs, other than my members are still waiting to hear what are the district's next steps. I also want to share that later in the agenda, you will be hearing about the district's second interim report. I just want to remind the public that a district this size, the state of California, only requires a 3% in reserves with a cap of 10%. However, after doing some calculations, MDUSD has about 49.9% in reserves. So what does that mean to me and my members? This is money that should be spent on our students today, right now. For years, I have heard that there will not be enough money for our students in the future years if the reserves are spent down. Well, this is the future, and our students need interventions, programs, librarians, counselors, and this is just a few programs I'm mentioning that we are continuing to ask for. Providing these services will help achieve the district's LCAP goals. As an educator, I knew when one of my students was struggling or needed extra supports. When this happened, I would request a meeting with the site care team to discuss how we can support a student. This is the work we do as an educator. We assess, we collect data, we discuss with those involved who could help the student. All of this takes time, work, and resources until we find a solution. This is money that I believe and my members believe is well spent on our students. On another note, I just want to acknowledge all the wonderful Teachers of the Year nominees and all of the finalists. I was especially impressed to hear the many accomplishments that these teachers have completed. Last week's school board meeting, I was standing in the back so impressed with what I was hearing. Many of these educators have worked in this district for 10, 20 plus years, even up to 30 years. Many have multiple degrees, and as mentioned, Dr. David Pintado is even a medical doctor who has been educating our students at Mount Diablo High School for years. I heard over and over how dedicated these educators are to their students, to their school site, and their community. These are the educators that make the Mount Diablo Education Association, or MEDIA. These are my members, and I am so honored to represent them. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Clark, we have item 10, recognition and resolutions. 10.1 is the resolution in recognition of Arab American Heritage Month.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I have before you Resolution 24/25-54 in recognition of Arab American Heritage Month. So whereas for over a century, Arab Americans have been making valuable contributions to virtually every aspect of American society, including medicine, law, business, science and technology, government, literature, arts, and entertainment. and in positions of leadership at all levels. So whereas Arab migrants to the United States brought with them their resilient family values, strong work ethic, dedication to education, and diversity in faith and creed, strengthening the fabric of our diverse nation. Whereas Mount Diablo Unified School District is proud to serve and employ Arab American students, parents, and employees. And now therefore be it resolved that the Mount Diablo Unified School District celebrates the countless past, present, and future contributions of Arab Americans to American society in the state of California, recognizing and honoring the month of April 2025 to be Arab American Heritage Month. Madam President, this item is now in the hands of the board.
Madam President, I would like to move to approve Resolution 2425-54 in recognition of Arab American Heritage Month. And I just want to thank this board and district for supporting this resolution for a number of years now. And I'm proud to be a part of this team that recognizes all students in our school district. And as I've been out at different school sites, I've seen more and more signs of that. Things in different languages, things recognizing students who come from different religions and how that might impact their school. So I'm proud to be a part of this district.
Second.
So we have a motion by trustee Cound with a second by trustee Nzewi on the recognition of the resolution for Arab American Heritage Month. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, trustee Ochoa?
Yes.
Thank you. So this motion is adopted on a 4-0-0 vote with trustee McDougall absent and support from trustee Ochoa. Thank you. 10.2, Dr. Clark.
Great. I was looking in the audience to make sure that Victoria was here, and I see her. So this is Victoria oversees our adult education programs and does a fine job at that and serves many in our community. So I'm glad she's here to hear that the board is in support of this resolution. So resolution 24/25-56 in support of K-12 adult education and recognition of Adult Education Week, which is April 6th through April 12th. Whereas the first recorded adult education class in California was held in the basement of St. Mary's Cathedral in San Francisco in 1856. The class was authorized by the San Francisco Board of Education to teach English to the Irish, the Italian, and Chinese immigrants. John Sweat, who was the first volunteer teacher for the class, later became a state superintendent of public instruction. So whereas the Mount Diablo Adult Education successfully serves Concord and surrounding communities through its collaboration with its community college partners and community-based organizations. Although through the adult education system, Mount Diablo Adult Education served 6,483 students in the years 23 and 24. So whereas the state of California will proclaim Adult Education Week during the week of April 6th through April 12th, so be it therefore resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Mount Diablo Unified School District strongly urges the Governor of California, Gavin Newsom, and the California legislature to recognize the important role of K-12 adult education in addressing the needs of our communities in the short and long term, and to increase access to programs and services for the most in need and not yet reached members of our great state. Madam President, this item is now in the hands of the board.
Madam President, I would move to approve Resolution 24/25-56 in support of K-12 adult education and recognition in Adult Education Week, April 6th through 12th, 2025. And I just want to say that my father, having dropped out of school to go fight in World War II, got his diploma in adult education and told me that the education was the one thing I could get that no one could ever take away from me.
Second that.
So we have a motion by trustee Mason with a second by trustee Cowan on the item 10.2 in support of K-12 adult education and Adult Education Week. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, trustee Ochoa, how do you vote?
Yes.
So item 10.2 is adopted on a 4-0-0 vote with trustee McDougall absent and support from trustee Ochoa. Thank you. Dr. Clark, 10.3.
Yes, Madam President, I'm not going to read this whole resolution, but this is resolution 24/25-57, and that is authorization for individuals to update banking information. And so after personnel changes, we realize that we need to add additional authority to make changes for our bank signatures. So we're asking for approval of this resolution, and it was in your packet.
I move to approve resolution 24/25-57 for individuals to update banking information.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion on 10.3 by trustee Nzewi with a second by trustee Mason. Is there further discussion? Trustee Ochoa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. So item 10.3, the resolution 24-2557 to update banking information is adopted on a 4-0-0 vote with trustee McDougall absent and trustee Ochoa supporting. Board member reports. Let's start with trustee Cowan.
All right, we just met a week ago, so I don't have much to share. But I did want to mention that when I got to go read for Read Across America at Wren Avenue Arts Magnet School, I chose a book about the current holiday of Ramadan because I thought, not everybody knows about this and how it may impact students' experiences and staff experiences at schools. And so this was to a fourth grade class. And it was really great to see how it prompted a discussion about how the experience and the challenges of fasting every day, no food, no water for a whole month, is designed to help people empathize and feel a duty to care for those who are hungry. And seeing the students learn about that and teach each other about that for some people whose families are observing Ramadan was just really, really heartwarming and beautiful to see, and just gave me a lot of hope. So that's all I wanted to share.
Thank you. Trustee Mason?
I came to Dr. Clark's town hall meeting here in the boardroom last week, kind of giving support to all of us how to cope with all the things that we're having to address every day. So the next night, I was able to go to Rio Vista for a talent show, which was much more uplifting. And I have to say thank you to the parents and to the staff and to the kids. It was a hoot. We had a pre-K kid dancing to Thriller. We had cheerleaders. We had ukulele player. I'm telling you, there's a lot of talent out there in Bay Point. It was just a very, very uplifting occasion, and I was very happy to be there. And then last night I went to the CAC committee and had a very interesting report on autism. A lot of things I didn't know about it. A wonderful panel that Wendy put together of people who have had experiences and shared those with us. And they also talked about coming up on April 22nd. They're going to have, I believe it's a sock hop next door in Monty Gardens that everybody's invited to attend and support those folks. And also, I believe it was confusing because it kept changing the dates, but the celebration of success is now the April 24th instead of the 17th because a needed change in schedule. So it was a very good meeting. It was very well attended. And a lot of my friends from Bay Point was there. So that was very nice. That's it for mine.
Trustee Ochoa?
Just a brief report.
Since graduating from Olympic last week, I started a new job at Solar Swim and Gym, working mostly with kids on the spectrum. I am a basketball coach, swim instructor, and fitness teacher. With this new experience, I am able to gain a new perspective and learn patience with myself and others. So far, I'm enjoying it, and it's been a great way to meet the new kids and coming in every day. On an upcoming Wednesday, I will be visiting Oak Grove and conducting another focus group. I would like to see if there has been any changes since I last attended middle school there. I would like to gain perspective on what is there to offer for the students and teachers. The questions will be similar to previous ones from the last focus groups. I'm looking forward to hearing from the students and reporting back. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Nzeri,
I'm back.
we're glad you are.
What I wanted to share about was 2 weekends ago, I attended the Literacy and Justice for All conference in Oakland, which had a number of MDUSD staff at, which is great to see. I'm glad that that was supported, and I hope that we continue to send people. But one session I went to, like the one I wanted and needed to go to, was led by Dr. Jasmine Rogers. She's a professor at American University and in Washington, D.C. And she's a coach for the science of reading. And the session was on Black language and literacy. First, I want to share. This is a quote from Dr. Geneva Smitherman on Black language, a definition. A style of speaking English words with Black flavor, with Africanized semantic, grammatical pronunciation, and rhetorical patterns. Black language comes out of the experience of U.S. slave descendants. This shared experience has resulted in common language practices in the Black community. The roots of African American speech lie in the counter language, the resistance discourse that was created as a communication system intelligible to speakers of the dominant master class. And some of the things I learned in that, I'm actually passionate about Black language and passionate about the affirmation of Black language, because it is often in our education systems from early education on through, deemed like incorrect English, upon adults, we think that someone who speaks Black language is ignorant or uneducated. And among children, Black children, when they come to school speaking Black English, instead of being affirmed like other multilingual children, they are told that they're speaking wrong, pronouncing things wrong, that it's all incorrect. But in fact, as she said, the way you speak is perfect. The way we all speak is perfect. All language is good language. All language is rule-based. And we need, as educators, to validate the language that children are loved in. And that doesn't happen often for Black children. And we speak of, in most districts, but our district, of course, embraces the science of reading, but the science of reading is also racialized. There's very few people, if you Google it, there's very few Black faces around the expertise of the science of reading, and it's mostly based on white experiences, which also can prevent the affirmation of Black language and teaching children to read utilizing science-based practices. So all the other stuff I want to tell you about this is about Dr. Bettina Love, but Dr. Bettina Love is going to be the speaker at CASA next week, and I don't know who among us is going to be there, so I don't want to ruin it because it possibly could be the same talk. So we can all talk about it the next time, because the gems and the inspiration and the motivation to, as one of the cards said, fight against what's happening federally is there. And to me, it gives us, I honestly feel like we have no choice but to do the things that she says and to behave in the way that she says. So yeah, I'll end it there. Thank you.
Did you want to recognize Trustee Ochoa?
Oh, well, I brought her, yes. Yay. High school graduate, now employed high school graduate. He's saying because I brought a cupcake. So Dr. Clark, well, he joked when I brought this because he didn't see me put it here, and he didn't even know what it was. But who would leave a box but me? Because it's what I do. I bring treats. I bring treats. They know this. I always bring treats. But I didn't get to say. Well, I said on the phone. I have no idea how well I was heard. But so proud of you. You are such an inspiration. Just even now, it's amazing that you're circling back to Oak Grove. You, a student there, you who can go there and say, look at me. Not only have I just finished high school and got a job, and I'm on the school board. And that's not something that I know that for many children at Oak Grove that they're even imagining of. And you're at DVC, like you've checked off all the boxes of what we should expect of every one of our children in our community. And your path and road may have been windy and bumpy, but you did that. And I'm so proud of you. Mm-hmm.
Well, I saved you for last. Dr. Clark, would you like to make your report now, item 12.1?
Yep, Madam President, I really don't have a report this evening. I've been sending home several notices to our parents and just keeping them informed. We are in very challenging times right now, and in public education, and so we are trying to be as responsible as we can here within the Mount Diablo Unified School District. But also, I just want to give another plug for the Friday newsletter that goes out every single Friday, which I also write an introduction to. But just for the sake of, we just had a meeting last week, I will spare you all on additional reports tonight. So thank you.
All right, let's move on to 13, item 13, consent agenda. The items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be adopted or approved by a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. However, any item may be removed from the consent agenda upon the request of any board member and acted upon separately. We have a card. Oh, okay. So, Mr. Reynolds, would you like to speak now, please?
Push button. There we go. Thank you. I put in a card for item 13.5, review and potential approval of the Destiny Library Manager for the term of a year. I think that's just a good thing. I would just like to point out to the board that this library manager system, which controls the checking in and checking out of every library book in the entire district, all 30 of our elementary schools, all 9 of our middle schools, all 5 of our comprehensive high schools, as well as our numerous alternative education campuses for 1 year, cost $55,000. That to me sounds like an appropriate amount to spend on a software system that is going to serve tens of thousands of students having access to potentially hundreds of thousands of books. Thank you.
So, does anyone like to pull an item?
I move that we approve the consent agenda items.
Second.
So we have a motion by trustee Nzewi with a second by trustee Cound on the approval of the consent agenda, which is item 13.1. Trustee Ochoa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Item 13.1, the consent agenda is approved on a 4-0-0-1 vote with trustee McDougall absent and support from trustee Ochoa. We will move on to the regular business. And Dr. Clark, would you like to introduce item 16.1?
Yep. We are extremely fortunate to have such a dedicated and knowledgeable fiscal team led by Adrian Vargas. And again, as I started this off, we are in we'll do those after. We're in challenging fiscal times as a state, as a nation, especially in public education. I've shared before about the layoffs that are taking place all around us: Pittsburgh Unified, San Ramon Unified, Lafayette Union School District. We have West Contra Costa, we have Oakland, we have San Francisco, we have San Jose. I could go on and on. And so it's very important that that we are able to file these reports so that we can track where we are financially and we can actually get the facts out there. Oftentimes, I know that there's narratives that happen and things like that, but this is factual, and this will go to the county, and the county will write us a letter either approving this interim report or not approving the interim report. And so, with that, I'm going to turn this over to the team so that they can share where we are as a district at this particular time financially and where we're going to be in 3 years. So, Madam President, I'll give you Adrian Vargas.
Thank you. Mr.
All right,
Vargas.
thank you, Dr. Clark. Good evening, Board of Trustees. So I'll be working through the second interim report, and helping me tonight is Gustavo Aguilera. He's the Executive Director of Fiscal Services. So just a reminder, we are required to do 2 reports. We did first interim in December, and that was as of October 31st. Second interim is our projections as of January 31st, and that takes us all the way through June 30th. We're required to provide multi-year projections for the current year and the 2 years after, and then we require board approval and certification. And then there are 3 financial reporting certifications. Positive means that you can meet your financial obligations for the current and 2 subsequent years. Qualified is that you may not meet financial obligations for the current and 2 subsequent years. And then finally, negative is that you will not meet financial obligations in the current year or 2 subsequent years. So for Mount Diablo, we are self-certifying as positive for the second interim report. And that is that we are showing that we have the cash flow, and most importantly, that the district will maintain our fund balance reserve in the 3rd year out above the 3% minimum required reserve. And so before we go into the 24-25 second interim numbers, I just want to highlight the difference between unrestricted and restricted. And so unrestricted normally is you can use that for any district use, with the exception of LCAP supplemental. That's used towards the students that generate those funds. And those are the projected budgets for those particular funding sources under the unrestricted expenditures. And we also track our transportation expenditures on the unrestricted side. Districts do that in different ways. I've been in other districts where they track that on the restricted side of their budget, but basically those are earmarked for transportation services. And as you can see, the majority of our transportation services are related to special ed and transporting our special ed needs students. And then on the restricted side, we've talked about this before, but normally restricted expenditures are designated for specific programs or activities. And so I try to highlight some of those programs that are in our restricted side of the budget. As you can see, our title programs are roughly 10.2 million, and you will see a slide that Gustavo will present, but that represents about 5% of our revenue. And that's been a big conversation with the policies that are coming from the federal level, like what could that impact look like? So we are at 10.2 million. I will say that 1.2 million of that is CSI money. So it's related to Title I, but it's additional funds that we get for particular schools. So if I had to say what our federal title program funding, it would be roughly about 9 million. And then you can see where the majority of our budget goes towards, which is our special ed programs at almost 111 million. You see that our routine repair maintenance, we are contributing a little over 16 million there. And then our after school programs, which is ELOP and our ACES program, we have close to $22 million budgeted in the second interim report for those particular programs. And then finally, the one in green, we are required to report that on our financials. So you would see that on the benefit side of the restricted side of our budget. And again, I highlight it because it increases benefits, but there is an offset in revenues that make it a net zero, but we're required to reflect that in our financials. And that's called STIRS on behalf contribution. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Gustavo, and he's going to walk you through the 24-25 budget. And I just want to say that should say first interim budget, not second interim budget. Gustavo caught that this afternoon. So, all right, Gustavo.
Thank you, Adrian. Before I begin with the changes, I would like to thank the board, Dr. Clark, Mr. Vargas, for supporting the academic success of the students that we serve. I would also like to thank my fiscal staff, the sites, department administrators, and their teams for their effort and work for the second interim report. So the notable changes from first interim to second interim is the approach that we took. Is very different from prior years. We analyzed our funding revenue and analyzed our year-to-date spending as of January 31st to help us determine if we are on track, underspending, or exceeding budget expectations. In recent years, the practice has been to reconcile as of June 30th. This year, we looked at our trends and examined the budget through June 30th. So here are the following revenue and expenditures since first interim. The unrestricted revenue funding increased by 1.6 million, and that's due to supplemental and TK funding. For federal revenue, adjustments were made by 2.4 million, and that decrease is due to unused Title I funds. State revenue adjustments were made by 840,000. That decrease is due to unused K-12 strong workforce and universal pre-K funds. The local revenue adjustments were made by 4.9 million. And that's largely due to Medi-Cal revenue and the Special Education California Children and Youth Behavioral Health Initiative grant. So for salary and benefits, adjustments to certificate and salary staff were made totaling a decrease of 5.6 million due to vacancy savings and timesheet savings. However, benefits adjustments increased by 2 million overall. I do want to remind everyone that this is the district's first full year of having full Kaiser medical benefits. In the fall, the district had the opportunity to have open enrollment for our staff. For books and supplies, we incurred an adjustment decrease in unrestricted of 600,000. For restricted expenditures, it is projected that 22.4 million of the allocated funds will not be utilized within the current fiscal year. These expenses typically include carryover funds and multi-year funding allocations. For contract services and other operating expenditures, adjustments in unrestricted decreased by 657,000. The restricted expenses increased due to reallocation of funds from the books and supplies. And again, the carryover is usually budgeted in books and supplies, and then working with the sites and departments, that's where we do budget reallocations. And for capital outlay adjustments for equipment, we're due to equipment replacement and kitchen infrastructure, which netted in a decrease of 76,000. So at second interim, LCFF consists of 95% of the projected 356.7 million unrestricted revenue. The restricted revenue is projected at 119.6 million, totaling 476 million. I do want to point out again the 5% of the projected revenue is federal of the combined revenue. Here's a breakdown of the general fund expenditures by major object group. The unrestricted projected expenditures are at 300 million. 92% of the unrestricted budget is allocated to salaries and benefits. The restricted projected expenditures are at 224 million. The total general fund expenditures is projected at 527 million. On the following slide, the pie charts will break down these expenditures. Here again, you'll see the 92% of the budget consists of certificated and classified salaries and benefits for the unrestricted chart. The combined chart will show the unrestricted and restricted funds. 79% of the overall budget consists of certificated and classified salaries and benefits. The decrease is due to the restrictions of the revenue funding our school district receive, which must be used exclusively for its designated purposes. The general fund contribution had an adjustment roughly of $1,000 from first interim to second interim. Here's a summary of Fund 01. The table on the left shows the total revenue and the total expenditures, which nets a projected deficit of 50.7 million. You will also see the beginning balance and the projected ending balance. I would like to note that the beginning balances are reflected in totals as it reflects a prior year audit adjustment of 14.7 million to unrestricted and a negative 1.4 million to restricted fund balance. The table on the right shows the components of ending fund balance with commitments and assignments. And now I'll turn it over to Adrian to finish off the presentation.
Thank you, Gustavo. So I'm going to stay on this one for a little bit longer. So the chart on the right outlines our ending fund balance components. And the reason why I'm sticking on this because we have a resolution in the next board item that talks about the committed allocations. And so we're committing $3.5 million for legal settlements. The primary piece of that is our Title IX settlement. And then we are looking at the conversion of our software program to a different software. And so far with one of the vendors for a mid-year transition, our quote so far has been about $1.5 million. We will begin talks with the county as well because we're going to be looking at their software program. Again, as we led into this second interim report, there were delays in terms of data coming out of the software. So that's why we are here on the 19th and not on the 12th. So it just seems that every time we try to fix the software that's been here in this district, and just a reminder that our software, we see in one other district in the state of California. So we are one of 2 districts that run this particular software. So that allocation is set aside. And then just the projected deficits are part of the commitments, which is a normal piece of our resolution that we have included. Also, I assigned a collective bargaining contingency because we have TA'd with at least 2 of our labor partners. And so we will be doing the AB 1200 for the next board meeting. And that just represents the what is currently out there, which is a 1% starting July 1st, 2025, and a 1% starting July 1st, 2026. And so that's a contingency. Like I said, we've already TA'd with 2 of our groups, but that is in the components of ending fund balance. And then the remaining 8 million is for the potential deficit, as you will see in our 4th year and what that may look like. So with that being said, I will start with the multi-year projections. And just as a reminder, California AB 2756 is the legislation that is requiring districts to show your current year and the 2 subsequent years. And so that is part of the compliance piece in terms of when we do multi-year projections. This is the legislation that is driving that component of any interim report or budget report that we submit to the County Office of Ed. I mean, I hear the conversation about our fund balance. I think that was the sole reason that we settled at 9% and the full Kaiser rate is because, you know, and as we've termed it, is a planned spend down of our fund balance. And as you will see in the multi-year, we are spending that on average about 30 million. And then that, you know, we are still have the ability to have reserves above 3%, which is the whole reason why we're able to file a positive certification for second interim. And also I will share, you know, I think we do still have, I mean, we still do have one-time funds in the Learning Recovery Block Grant, Educator Effectiveness, the Arts, Music, and Instructional Materials Block Grant. And so in that, in our multi-year, we are utilizing those funds to stave off what you're seeing in the surrounding districts. So prior to me getting here, that is something that the district didn't do, is put one-time funds towards ongoing positions. And so the fund balance is built up over time. And even for us, we had to spend down ESSER for 23-24. We utilized some special ed expenditures in last fiscal year, which was roughly about 7 million. And so that helped raise fund balance. So we are continuing to try to do that and utilize the one-time funds to get us over the next 2 years. And then again, multi-projections or MYPs are estimates. They're not guaranteed outcomes, but they do help us assess our revenues and expenditures and our fund balance over 3 years. And just as a reminder, there are a lot of factors that change, even from first interim to second interim. You know, that's your enrollment, your UPP percentage, as I reported at first interim. And as you will see in here, we are reflecting that our UPP percentage is a lot higher at 55.8%. And that's above the average of 48%. So in the 3rd year out, we're going to reap the benefits of a higher UPP percentage. So with that being said, the multi-year assumptions that are included is flat enrollment. And that's based off our current year CBEDS enrollment, which was the first Wednesday in October. And so that is at 29,193. We're using an ADA ratio of 93%, which is an adjustment down from first interim based off our P1 report, which was filed in early January. So that's the reflection of our attendance through the first 5 months of the school year. So that was a small adjustment. Our COLA is 2.43% and 3.08% in the 2 subsequent years. And then again, the higher UPP is being used as the assumption in the out years. And then you can see the increase in LCFF year over year. So it's going to jump to about 5.4 million in the 3rd year out. And like I said, that is related to the concentration funding, or the 55.8% being averaged in. Federal, state, and local revenues, they're projected to be flat after we remove one-time funding sources. And then that's the breakout for federal, state, and local funds. We have a small, or an adjustment on the unrestricted side, and that's related to interest income. And then those are the rates at which our special ed funding is based on in the 2 out years. And then we are projecting about a $3 million increase year over year. For the expenditure assumptions, we're still utilizing the 1.56 step and column increase. And as I stated earlier, the unrestricted side of the budget does include shifting our unrestricted safety and counseling expenditures to restricted funding sources. But also this is offset by increasing our TK instructional assistance to support our TK program as we move from 12-to-1 to 10-to-1. I think that's the ratio. And then again, restricted certificated salaries increase because we are accounting for growth and step and column. Benefits, STRS is projected to remain at 19.1%. And then we see a PERS increase to 27.4, and then a small bump up in the 3rd year out. We did remove the $1.7 million supplemental retirement program payment from this year's budget. This was the last year of the 5-year program. And then overall benefits increase roughly about 3.1 million and 4 million in the 2 out years. Moving on to books and supplies, we see a decrease in 26-27, and that's because we're removing LCAP carryover funds. We're spending roughly, I think it was about 38 million, I think I showed on that first slide. And so that's about 7 million above what we generate, but we were required to expense any carryover funds for LCAP supplemental. So in 25-26, we're making an adjustment for that. And then there's adjustments for restricted books and supplies, 7.2 million, and that's primarily related to the textbook adoption and one-time funds. And then contracted services, again, we're seeing decreases in that related to LCAP expenditures. And then in restricted contracted services, it's the removal of one-time expenses, and it's primarily those one-time grants that I was talking about: learning recovery, educator effectiveness, arts, music, and instructional materials. And then capital outlay, we're projecting to be flat after we remove the expenditures related to the kitchen infrastructure grant that is currently in our budget. So with that being said, here's our 3-year second interim multi-year. And this is shown split by unrestricted, restricted. So you can see we do have a fund balance of 118 plus 118.7. And when you add the 14.6, that equates to roughly, I believe, 133. And we are showing a projected deficit spend of 33.6 million or 33.7 million this year, 29.9 million in the second year, and 22.3 million in the 3rd year out. And then just to get a sense of what our projected budgets are looking at, we are projecting about a $85.8 million decrease in our unrestricted fund balance from this year to the third year out. Again, some of that may fall to fund balance. And as Gustavo described, I think we did budgeting a little bit differently for second interim. We try to project what our expenditures would be through June 30th. Normally that process is done while we develop the budget, and we call it estimated actuals. But we try to take our best stab at what is happening currently in 24-25 to make those budget adjustments. So again, this is a multi-year projection. It's our best guesstimate with the information that we have now. The multi-year does not include probably two major proposals from the governor, and that's that one-time block grant and the TK add-on to support moving to 10-1 in 25-26. And so at the May revise, that may change, but at least for now, the county has instructed districts not to include that. And until we get closer to the May revise, or even at that point, depending on what is happening at the federal and state level, whether or not to add that. But just to put that in context, if we get the per ADA amounts that they're talking about, the one-time block grant would generate probably about 8.8 million for the district in one-time funds. And then the TK add-on would add roughly about 2.5 million. And I believe that would be ongoing. But again, those are proposals that have not been approved. And we have not gotten the guidance from the county that we can include that in our multi-year. So this is a summary of the 3-year multi-year. So this is the combined unrestricted, restricted, and the components of ending fund balance. But as you can see, we are spending, or we're projected this deficit spend in all 3 years, but we are still able to maintain our 3% reserve. So moving forward, I'm showing you a slide of what the 4th year potentially could look like if we hold with these numbers, and we don't have those proposals built in that I just talked about. We could potentially be looking at a shortage of about 11.2 million. But again, we are going through budget development for 25-26. We are doing what we can to minimize what that number may look like. And, as I say, if those one-time funds do get approved and they flow through our budget, I think it would be very minimal to what we might be looking at with the adopted budget. And again, the 4th year will become our 3rd year when we come in the first meeting of June to present our proposed budget. So I show this to you now because this is how it's trending based off what our current budget holds and the budgets that are sitting with our sites and departments. And so this slide highlights just the deficit spend. And as you can tell, we are getting better with the deficit spend, but I also think that has to do with the higher projected LCFF revenues and the UPP percentage being as high as it can, but we are still utilizing flat enrollment. And then this slide basically shows the other funds. And as you can see, all other funds are projected to have a positive fund balance. And then the building fund, we are working on another issuance. And so we are projecting the April 23rd board meeting where we'll be bringing documents to address the last issuance of Measure J, as well as the same time, we're going to be looking at refunding some of the bonds related to Measure C to achieve some cost savings. and additionally just staff time, because there's a lot of time that goes into issuing bonds in terms of all the work that needs to go behind a official statement. All right, and then just things to think about. Again, I've talked about the state budget, the county and school services of California, and FCMAT are talking that the wildfires may have a financial impact. And then again, it seems like day to day things change with the federal policy changes that come down and then that go in the courts. We did get impacted by the first letter that came out back in February. We had roughly about a $500,000 grant. So we are in limbo about that, because I just read an article today that a judge ordered Trump administration to reinstitute those funds, but those are the things that we have to address or be, cognizant of. Again, we have the expiring and spending down of one-time funds, which we are doing in our multi-year. And then we have not finished our collective bargaining with our other units. Like I said, we have 2 TAs that we'll be bringing to the April 16th board meeting. And then the other thing is the enrollment and then student absence rates. I mean, like I said, at the first 5 months, the trend is roughly 93%. But again, with what's happening at the federal level, we don't know or see that impact and what's happening at our school sites. Our second P2 ADA report will be filed in the beginning of May. So we'll start looking at that data towards the middle of April to late April, just to see what our P2 will look like and whether or not we hit that target of 93%. And then just the rising cost of pension rates, health benefits, and then the insurance is going to be a big one as well, just due to the wildfires, and then the AB 218 claims that districts are getting. And then here's a budget calendar timeline. So we're in March, and so we continue the work in budget development, and that goes all the way through basically the end of May. We do have the governor May revised budget coming out in May, so he'll put out that by May 10th, I believe. And so we'll get an update on what the proposals look like for 25-26. And then we will be back in June to do the public hearing on the LCAP and the budget, and then the subsequent approval of the budget and LCAP for next year. One other thing that I do want to mention is that we have the intent of bringing back the Budget Advisory Committee. However, we had a very low response, and I've figured out why we've had a low response, thanks to our Medea president. She kind of pointed out like some of the members probably expired in terms of their term. So we have to work on that. So you're probably going to get an email from our fiscal department in terms of nominating a BAC member. And then hopefully we'll be bringing these nominations for approval in the board meetings in April on the 16th and the 23rd. And then we'll reconvene the Budget Advisory Committee meetings. So with that, I will take any questions.
So shall we do the public comment first, board members? The first is Mr. Dan Reynolds.
Thank you. Hello again, board. Dan Reynolds. I was a teacher in the district for 16 years and currently as the executive director of the Mount Diablo Education Association. I'm a CTA staffer. I have been trained in school district budgets. I also provide trainings in school district budgets. I have worked with dozens of school districts on the labor side, assessing their budgets. I have some facts for you. It is a fact that in 2018-19 at second interim, you were presented with a report that said that you would have a $32 million deficit that year. It was an $8 million deficit. It was off by $24.8 million. It's a fact that in 1920, you were presented with a second interim report that said you were going to have a $15 million deficit that year. It ended up being a $1.3 million deficit. It was $14.5 million off. It is a fact that in 2021, you were presented with a second interim that said that you would have a $7.9 million surplus. You ended up with a $41 million surplus. Your second interim report was $33 million off. It's a fact that in 21-22, you were presented with a second interim report that said that you were going to have a $5.5 million surplus. It ended up being $40.5 million, and it was off by $35 million. It's a fact that in 22-23, you were presented with a second interim report that said that you were going to have $11 million surplus. It ended up being a $52 million surplus, and it was $41 million off. Last year in 23-24, you were presented with a second interim report that said you were going to have a $30 million deficit last year. So in March, this day a year ago, you were told that that school year you'd have a $30 million deficit. You ended with a $17 million surplus. It was $47 million off. You're being presented with a second interim report tonight that says you're going to have a $50 million deficit this year. If you look at the facts of the history of the reports that you as a board are presented at second interim, you will see that they are off by $24 million, $14 million, $33 million, $35 million, $41 million, $47 million. The second interim reports that you receive do not prove to be accurate. And what they do is they project these terrible deficits that scare the public into thinking that the schools aren't going to be able to be funded. That does not become the reality. The reality is that you have, over the past several years, amassed $214 million in your beginning fund balance, money that you took in previous years and didn't spend on students. The lawyer that you brought to the bargaining table with Medea said at the bargaining table to Medea that multi-year projections are never accurate. The reason he knows that is because not only is he a district-side lawyer, he's also a sitting school board member who sees multi-year projections, and he knows they are never accurate. The spending at second interim is the district spending through January 31st of this year. So a fiscal year that runs July 1st through June 30th, you're 7 months into a 12-month cycle. You didn't start the timer, but I'll only go for like another minute because I don't want to disrespect the 3-minute time. 7 months into your 12-month budget cycle, you should have spent about 58% of your year's budget because we're 58% of the way through the year at January 31st when this second interim report looks at your finances. And if you look across your second interim, it shows that you are actually spending at a number that is $41 million below 58% of that projected expenditure. So the $50 million deficit that it says you're going to spend this year, if you actually look 58% of the way through the year, should we have spent 58% of our dollars, which is a roughly accurate thing because you are going to spend some money in the summer that you're not spending now on capital outlay and other things, but you're also not paying salaries for all of your people in the summer because most of them you've paid already. The budget in this district is much healthier than the second interim shows and tremendously more healthy than the multi-year projection shows. There are dollars in this district now and in the future to meet all of your obligations and do more to improve the educational outcomes for our students. It is not accurate for you to worry about the sky falling, especially when you have a 42%, a number in your beginning fund balance equivalent to 42% of your expenditures, and the state requires a 3% reserve. Thank you.
Mr. Kip Penovich, you're next. Thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you all. By the time we get here, there have been at least 9 projections for the budget because 2 years prior, there were 3 two-year projections out. Last year, there were 3 projections for this year, and now this second interim is 3 more. So by the time we arrive here, there have been 9 opportunities to kind of project what's going to happen. I've gone back and kind of cataloged all of them since 1819 up to present. And the one thing that I noticed is that something happened between the year 1920 and 2021. I only had 2 years where I had all 3 at the beginning there. But whatever was going on for 18, 19, 19, 20, when I took all of the projections in terms of the fund balance, they were off by an average of $10 million. And that means there ended up being $10 million more with the unaudited actuals than what was said, or projected. Since 2021 through last year, 23, 24, the average that the projections have been off is $52.5 million. So from one year to the next, things have gone further astray 5.5 times. I don't know what would be going on there. I will say that in the first and second interim budgets, for example, books and supplies are regularly over budgeted by tens of millions of dollars, which makes the projection look worse. And then with unaudited actuals, it gets dialed back. Within those numbers, there are a couple values that I do want to point out, though. Since 2021, the amount that we spend for services and other operating expenditures has doubled from $38 million to $76 million. Of that $38 million increase, and these are all from unaudited actuals, 19 million of that goes to sub-agreements for services, and 11 million goes to these are the increases. We've gone up $19 million in sub-agreements for services and $11 million for professional consulting services and operating expenditures. We've also happened to go up about $1 million on travels and conferences. The thing that worries me about the sub-agreements and professional consulting stuff is I don't view that as classroom level spending. I view that as managerial spending. And I think you get better bang for your buck when you spend your money closer to the kids, not further away. So I don't know what's being spent there, but it has increased dramatically over the last 3 or 4 years. Thank you.
We have another speaker, perhaps. Thank you. The third speaker is Linda Ortega.
Back. So I just wanted to, we had some documents that we prepared for you, and when Dan stepped away, he forgot to hand them to you. So I just wanted to make sure it's clear. We do have documents to talk about what we have analyzed. These are your numbers, and then we wanted to share our presentation with some documents. Thank you.
Dr. Clark, are you saying that in order for someone to give something to the board, they have to bring enough for everyone in the public?
So I will take responsibility for that. So if I need to present the same documents that you present us, okay, we can do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ortega. Did you wish to speak further? Okay, thank you. All right, member of the board, do you have questions of Mr. Vargas or questions about the interim report?
I don't know about question. I have a comment. Thank you again for your very thorough report. You know, you can look at the glass as half empty or half full. And when we're sitting in the time when we don't know what funds we're going to have tomorrow, am I really glad that we've not been willing to go right to the limit of what we think we might have? That if that rainy day comes, we're going to be able to not probably provide everything we're going to lose, but we're going to be in position to at least continue to serve the kids that need the service the most. And I'm so thankful that we're not having to lay off our teachers and close schools. And if we're a little off, I'd rather be off on having more money than we didn't have enough, and we'd be facing layoffs and closing schools right now. So it's a complicated thing. It's not easy to do, but we're doing our best to make sure that our most vulnerable students are going to be able to serve no matter what goes on outside of this boardroom. Thank you.
Trustee Cowan, do you have questions?
Yes. So I wanted to ask about the ADA assumption. You were saying it was adjusted down to 93 from 93.5, and that's because of our actual attendance over the first half of the year?
Correct.
Okay. So one of the things that we could potentially work on going forward is our attendance, though I hear what you're saying about there could be reasons why some of our students are not attending a school potentially in response to what's happening at the federal level. So we'll see in our P2, which you said is in May, when we'll see our next numbers on that.
Right. So we'll work on the report, and it's due usually by the first week of May to the County Office of Ed.
Thank you. Yeah, I know there have been so many efforts to improve attendance. I mean, we even saw on walk and rolls to school day and all the different ways that we work to get our children to school. Looking at trying to see what slide I'm looking at here. What number? I'm just looking at the MYP assumptions where you show the federal, state, and local losses, declines, the 2.3 million revenue, 2.3 million federal, 7.8 million state, and 10.5 million local. Those are all decreases. Is that related to what they call the ESSER cliff? So it's the ending of all these different one-time funds from the federal, state, and local level?
So for all three of those, it's for expiring grants because we have spent all our ESSER funds. So that is no longer in the budget. If we do, it's a small amount, but I believe this is all related to carryover funds in federal programs as well as state programs. And then the biggest one is our local. And I would say the local one is a little bit more difficult to do because when sites get donations or when we get big grants that are not state or federal, I mean, the practice has been to budget all of it fully and then you spend it down. And then what has been talked about at unaudited actuals, then you see what actually happens. And it is kind of the numbers. It could be 50% difference because the practice is that you will budget the full amount. So you can either track it differently, but that has been the issue that I've come across in most of the districts that I've worked in, that's just the practice. And so you see the shifts that are being discussed right now.
Okay. And then you talked about the new method that you've used this year that's different than in past years. Do you feel like we do hear this every year that our actuals are very different than our projections? I'm thankful that they're at least in the positive direction so that we are not closing schools as many of our surrounding districts are. But do you feel that with the new type of projections that you're making that may make us closer to projecting our
I
actuals?
mean, from my perspective, I mean, I hear it, the discussion as well. And so when we go through it, I'm probably on the other side that hopefully it is not more than what we are, or at least what the variance would look like at unaudited actuals is very minimal. I will say for me, I mean, I focus a lot on unrestricted because that's where the reserve is coming out of. But I learned a lesson last year with that ESSER funds and the switch of the 7 million because that impacted the unrestricted side of the budget. So taking that into account, that's what I was working on in terms of the second interim and utilizing the one-time funds. And you see the shifting of security, salaries, and expenditures to a resource that could support that on the restricted side of the budget, as well as counseling expenditures that are going to a one-time funding source because we have to spend it down over the next 2 years. And then so to answer your question, yeah, we went through that budget, and I would probably say I'm on the other side, like maybe it's too tight. Because we are looking at encumbrances as well, which is something that does not show up in the second interim report. It has actuals to date, but it does not show encumbrances, which is things that we will pay for in terms of position control salaries and benefits. And then again, the hardest part to judge is our open purchase orders, because everybody has the idea of what they're going to do. And then, we have a purchasing deadline that's coming up, and then they start putting all that stuff in. And then what usually happens is they don't spend all what they thought they were going to do with their purchase orders, or they try to spend it down and they get the product after June 30th. And unfortunately, that hits next year's budget.
Right.
And I know some of our revenue is coming from Medi-Cal currently, which is actually funded by Medicaid through the federal government. And so that's another funding source that could be disappearing. I just had one more question, and that's the on the very last page, the fund summaries, the deferred maintenance fund balance. It's the budgeted net change is bringing it very, almost to zero. It's at 134 thousand, but is that too low for a deferred maintenance fund? Is that
So,
where do we want to be with our deferred maintenance fund balance?
So the deferred maintenance fund, the district 2 years ago started transferring over about, I think it was $5 million to do facility projects. And so that got taken out of the budget last year when we presented the AB 1200 for the 9% and the full rate of Kaiser. So that's just spending down the 10 million that was allocated to the deferred maintenance fund over the last, or in those particular 2 years. And so you see that dwindling down as we finish up those projects. So unless we, make a transfer out from the general fund, like what was done in the previous, in those particular 2 years, then that fund will diminish to zero until we do that again.
Okay. That is all of my questions. Thank you so much.
Questions? This is an action item.
With that, I'll move to approve the district's positive certification for the second interim report.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion by trustee Cound with a second by trustee Mason. Is there further comment?
I just want to say once again, I'm so thankful that we are able to give a positive certification because we have been in a much more difficult place in the past. And that's part of where one of these expenses we're finally paying off this year in terms of the retirement fund. So I'm glad that we're at least this year with a positive certification. Thank you.
Trustee Ochoa.
Yes.
So item 16.1, the second interim report is approved on a 4-0-0-1 vote with trustee McDougall absent and with the support of trustee Ochoa.
And Madam President, if I may, Mr. Vargas, I want to echo Gustavo's thanking of not only you and Gustavo, but the fiscal team. This is school budgets are extremely complicated, and I know that you have spent your career in the fiscal office of school districts, and so you bring to this position a great deal of experience. And again, we have had many conversations trying to pin down the budget. And every time I come back from a county meeting and I hear about the carnage that's around us, I come back to Adrian and say, "Are you absolutely sure that we are where we are?" And he assures me every time that he never gives a solid answer. Is always around assumptions because again, it's assumptions. And we have things going on in this district that are very vital when it comes to declining enrollment possibilities, as we've struggled with before, aging facilities, ongoing negotiations, a changing community, things of that nature. And so I really appreciate the work that you all have put into this, and that you put into doing your work each and every day, and really taking ownership of money that is designated for the students of the Mount Diablo Unified School District. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm really glad that we have the financial software conversion in the budget, because I know that that has been creating headaches for our staff for quite some time to be trying to struggle. We've tried the updates, and thank you for trying the updates. And I know it won't be easy to convert over. That's going to be a huge process, but it is a necessary thing that we have to do. So thank you for making sure that can happen.
16.2. We do have a card on 16.2. Shall we have the presentation first? For the present speaker or the card?
For a speaker's fine. I don't have a
Okay.
presentation.
Mr. Daniel Reynolds.
Thank you. Superintendent Clark, I would encourage you to brush up on the Brown Act, which does not say that a member of the public who wants to present information to the board must bring copies for the public in attendance at the board. What it says is that anything presented to the legislative body becomes a public record which has to be made public available. Item 16.2 is a resolution to designate certain general funds as committed fund balance. The resolution itself lists 4 items: legal settlements of roughly $3.5 million, financial and HR software conversion, $2.5 million, deficit spending for next year at $29 million, deficit spending for the second year from now at $22.6 million. The district is responsible for committing funds like this because one of the reasons being that state law requires districts to not have ending fund balances or reserves above 10%. And one of the ways that you can avoid that while sitting on $214 million and having a beginning fund balance that represents 42% of your total outgo is by committing those funds, not actually spending them, but committing them. And so a resolution like this commits those funds, including committing it to a deficit in a future year that won't exist, and committing $2.5 million for financial and HR software conversion. And Sharice, I know you just mentioned that you are happy to see that they are looking at converting that software. I mentioned earlier that software that we use in our libraries, right? That software that exists at more than 40 sites across our district, serving tens of thousands of our students and tracking hundreds of thousands potentially of books and other titles. That software costs $55,000 a year. This software is 45 times more expensive than that. And so I would encourage the board to consider if it's something that maybe you're going to use for 45 years, and that's why it's 45 times more expensive, or if it's going to be used 45 times more often, and that's why it's 45 times more expensive, or if there are truly much cheaper options, especially because when you were told about the cost of this software earlier in this meeting, it was projected to be 1.5, not 2.5 million. But again, you're committing these funds so that you can meet state law and not have an overlarge reserve, but still be able to sit on hundreds of millions of dollars instead of spending them on the children of this community.
Mr. Vargas, would you like to make your presentation?
So the presentation is the resolution and the itemized 4 items. And again, I guess the one thing I will say is that this commitment is it's a district decision that we're making. Where actually the cap is not in effect for the 24-25 year because the governor tapped into the rainy day fund. So I brought that up at the adopted budget, but hearing the feedback at the adopted budget, we continue to do the commitment resolution because it's been happening with the district, but it is not a requirement. It could actually sit in the assignments. It could sit in undesignated, but as the multi-year goes through, it's still going to pull from fund balance. and it won't change what the projected third year looks like. But it is here for you, and we are continuing the practice even though that law is not in effect this year, and they're projecting 25-26 for that not to be in effect unless the governor deposits more money in the rainy day fund.
Okay, so you're saying the action of this resolution is not an actual legal requirement. It's something that has been brought forward because it's been a past practice, just in terms of trying to be transparent about our plans for these funds.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 22/25-55, designating certain general funds as committed fund balance.
Second.
So we have a motion from trustee Mason with a second from trustee Cound on 16.2, which would designate certain general funds as committed fund balance. Is there further discussion? Seeing none. Wait a minute, I want to make sure I don't close my system down. Trustee Ochoa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Congratulations. We have committed funds for our committed fund balance. Item 16.2 on a 4001 vote with trustee McDougall absent and support from trustee Ochoa. Item 16.3. Thank you, Mr. Vargas.
Thank you. Thank you. Do I have Ms. Allen and Ms. Filios coming to talk about our SBSA?
Good evening, Board of Trustees. In February, we brought the majority of the school plans for student achievement to you for approval. And tonight we have 3 additional schools coming forward for approval who, for various reasons, were not part of the first deadline. For 2 of the schools, they made some revisions and needed quorum at school site council. And for Mount Diablo Elementary, the school worked on the SIPSA, and then we waited for Principal Harris to be back from leave and then to get approval when she returned. So we are presenting the school plans for student achievement for Mount Diablo Elementary School, Shore Acres Elementary School, and Ignacio Valley High School. And I would like to thank Principal Sarah Harris, who is here, with Vice Principal Miranda Romo from Mount Diablo Elementary, and Principal Peter Crutchfield, who's here from Ignacio Valley High School.
Are you ready to consider this?
I would just say, since the principals are here, would be happy to hear anything that you might want to share with us this evening about how your plans are going.
Putting them on the spot.
Yeah, clearly they weren't prepared to speak, but thank you. Just give some general information. Thank
Anything
you.
in
Go
general
ahead.
that you want to share about your plans?
So good evening, Superintendent Dr. Clark, and good evening to the members of the Board of Education. So we were very pleased and happy that we were able to establish a quorum from our school site council. And we are also pleased that our plan, we feel that is very powerful and it's working. For example, the California Accountability Plan for all schools, which is also considered the California Data Dashboard. We made great strides in English language arts, math, the performing English language arts, math, and then also our suspension rate has declined. And so we've done great work. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crutchfield. I know it's so, as a parent myself, I know it can be so hard to even get parents together at this meeting, right? To even have a site council. So congratulations even on making that happen. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board and Dr. Clark. I had twins, so that's why I was on leave. So I just wanted to make that clear. I was having babies. But one of the things alongside my amazing new vice principal, Mrs. Romo, is we really had to shift gears around um, looking at data and looking at data with a growth mindset perspective. Mount Diablo Elementary, as you know, is a very high achieving school. But I think in the midst of doing the great work, we were leaving the students that needed help behind. And so through the help of all the district initiatives around STAR data, M-Class, kind of piloting all these new programs and some programs that have been at our site for a number of years, we finally can conscientiously work with our staff and provide professional development opportunities to really allow them the space and forum to have those tough questions, to have that cognitive dissonance going on between the grade levels, where I think for a long time they were just status quo. And we had a successful campus, so let's just keep doing what we're doing. But we're making really concerted efforts to challenge them and push the limits and really look at the numbers to help our students, all of our students, all 745 of them, achieve to the limit that they feel is in their best ability. So we really tried to highlight that in our SIPSA plan this school year. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's great to hear. Oh, and also congratulations, Ignacio Valley High School robotics. I hear you won the team won the regionals just yesterday or something very recently. Congratulations. Thank you.
I just wanted to make a comment. Everybody knows I'm a geek. I read all this stuff, and I need to go visit Mount Diablo Elementary. I haven't been out there, but for Ignacio Valley, as someone who's always been involved in schools, I've been to two IB, the robotics. There's tons of staff there. There's tons of kids there. There's families there. They're celebrating there. They're eating together. They're all buying in. That's what schools need above all else, I believe. And the same thing with Shore Acres. I've been to a couple family nights there. I've been to an ELAC meeting. Their parents are there. They're wanting to do volunteer projects. They're involved with what's going on in the school. Those are the things that really resonate with me. And I'm sure the same thing's happening at Mount Diablo Elementary. I'll get out there and check it out. But those are the things I'm seeing as I'm visiting schools is total pooling together of the families and the staff and the administrators. And I'm very proud of the things I'm seeing in these not so fun times.
Any questions?
For their hard work and our staffs. Well, one more congratulations since their plan's in front of you, but Ignacio Valley High School's plan is expending CSI funds, but congratulations to them. Based on those dashboard indicator improvements, they are exiting CSI and no longer eligible. So it's wonderful.
All right. Well, with that, I would like to approve the 2024-25 school plans for student achievement for Mount Diablo Elementary School, Shore Acres Elementary School, and Ignacio Valley High School.
And I'll second that.
So we have a motion by trustee Count with a second by trustee Mason. Further comments? Trustee Ochoa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay. So for item 16.3 for 3 school plans, they are approved on a 4-0-0-1 vote with trustee McDougall absent and support of trustee Ochoa. Item 16.4 is changes of board policies for us to consider. Among this list, we were presented with items AR 1312.4 and exhibits 1312.41 and 1312.42 at the last meeting. And the question is whether you'd like to approve those 3 at this point in time.
Move to approve revisions to AR 1312.4 and exhibits 1312.41 and 1312.42 as presented.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion to approve revisions for AR 1312.4 and its 2 exhibits. The motion was made by trustee Nzewi with the second by trustee Mason. Trustee Ochoa, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I just wanted to note for the public that the exhibit E2 is the Williams complaint form that is standard. But one of the things that I think the public may not be as aware of is that starting July 1st, 2026, our schools need to maintain at least one all gender restroom for students. So that's something that will be a new requirement. But this is also a place where people can report if our restrooms do not have adequate menstrual supplies for our students as they need to have. And I know it's a struggle to be providing that, but we should be making sure that we are doing that at all of our school sites.
Thank you. So the 1312.4, which is an AR, and the 2 accompanying exhibits are adopted on a 4-0-0-1 vote with Trustee McDougall absent and support from Trustee Ochoa. The 16.5. There are also policies that were presented at the last meeting to consider at this motion. At this moment. Who would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the revisions to BP 3540 as presented.
Second.
So there's a motion by Trustee Mason with a second by Trustee Nzeri on the approval of the revisions to Board Policy 3540. Further discussion? Trustee Ochoa?
Yes.
Thank you. And the new Board Policy 3540 is approved as presented on a 4.4001 vote with Trustee McDougall absent and support from Trustee Ochoa. We don't need item 17, a meeting extension. And we'll move down to item 21, requests for consideration at a future board meeting. Are there any requests at this time? All right.
Just want to report to the board that Kelly Hoover will be coming in the next couple of weeks to do a report on the arts programs and share relevant information and data surrounding our efforts to use AB 28. So, yeah.
Thank you. There've been a lot of concerts going on right now. With that, we will adjourn the meeting at 8:02 p.m. Thank you for attending. We have some documents to sign today.